Iranian trolls are the worst. They're the worst. We got trolled again.
What was the what were they trolling on? The whole Israel thing?
What was it? Yeah, well, here it was Josh who started it. Gad Sad wrote something, it was kind of funny, and Josh said something that got a lot of traction, and then some Iranian troll came in and started just making bad, stupid troll comments. You know, the first time I got Iranian trolled was when y'all remember when Iran hit Erbil with all those ballistic missiles, and they were just whatever. That was the first. I think I made a comment on Twitter, and then all of a sudden, man, these Iranian trolls who just threw the worst shade possible at me. I mean, their smack game needed help. And this one blocked us, though. That's a win.
They're horrible, though. Most trolls are not very good at it. Very few of them are actually good at like truly trolling, because most of the stuff they just, especially when you look at this administration, the economy, inflation, is like, you're just wrong. Like, you're not even trolling. You're just a moron. You're a complete idiot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of which, so we got I shot out the cover art, which, by the way, we need to do, when I say we, probably you, need to do some type of like collage of our cover art. We've got some pretty good cover art, man. So we know that the Biden challenged Trump to a debate, which I'm not sure how that worked, because Trump had already challenged Biden to a debate several months ago. But anyway, so Biden comes out and says, "Make my day, pal." Right? Did you see some of the X posts on it where, what was it, like 5 to 8 cuts for that 19 or 14-second clip that he made?
51 words.
51 words.
7 takes. Seven
takes. Unbelievable. So, you know, they got a lot of rules, and I don't know, we can talk a bit, you know, in a minute, whether we think the debate's actually going to happen or not. Cause I think there's some, well, up until today, there was probably a lot of, hey, Trump's going to jail today, type thing. But I don't know, that may change after today, because apparently, I don't want to go too far off the rails, but Cohen like legit got caught lying on the stand. And, from a couple of, even CNN was like, yeah, he appears to have lied. And a couple of the folks inside was like, the look on the juries or some of the jurors' faces were like, this is unbelievable. But anyway, we'll get that in a minute. So, you know, they've got all these rules and everything. It's like, you can't have an audience. I think it's only going to be selected media allowed. It's going to be held on CNN, the first one. You have to have held another presidential debate, which they did that purposely to rule out Fox, obviously. So that's how CNN got the gig. And then I think they're going to cut mics off after a certain amount of time. Was it 2 minutes, you said? So they'll cut the mics off.
No. I'm sorry. I meant only the two of them. Yeah, I know.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
According to the rules, no third-party candidate, according to Biden's own rules.
The rules say if the candidate is not on enough ballots to get 270 electoral votes, you can't be on there. According to RFK's post today, he's on enough ballots to get 270. More to play out. I don't, you know, again, I don't know how many ballots he's on. I don't know. I didn't think he was on that many to get 270, but that's what I saw today from CNN. But you know what? Maybe, maybe what you're saying is what Biden's camp wanted versus what CNN is putting out as part of the stipulations. But anyway, so I figured we'd have our own stipulations. And, we just started off with some, 4 easy ones. Staffers cannot accompany candidate in order to hide shuffling gait. So there's this story that when he is walking to and from Marine Corps 1, that they have strategically positioned staffers between Biden and the press and the cameras because the guy can't walk like 45 feet without stumbling over something, right? And I'm not talking about just like blocking the cameras. Hey, carry the biggest bag you can. Oh, by the way, bring 2 cases of luggage with you, that type of stuff. Like totally we're just short of walking with like a sheet over the dude. No adult diapers. At least 1 out of every 3 sentences has to be coherent and grammatically correct. That could be challenging for both of them. And then finally, we have the Epstein didn't kill himself. Bo didn't die in Iraq. Joe did shower with Ashley, and Hunter's laptop is real. So, I don't know what you guys think. If we need to add 1 or 2 more in there, I can tell you the Bo dying in Iraq would definitely comes up every time he talks publicly, right?
Go ahead, Josh. Josh is okay. You removed his microphone. That's good. The sound on Josh is not going to be so great, so don't switch us off immediately. Go ahead, Josh.
Look, it's not my fault that my microphone decided not to work. Okay, I'm just whatever. So no, I fully concur with those rules for the Trump Biden debate. Um, and I will add one more. They both need to be in clown costumes because that is what our presidential elections have basically been boiled down to.
Well, one might be in a jumpsuit. That might be close enough.
What? Can we at least put a big red nose on both of them? Yeah, I do believe Orange Man is going to jail. I will be shocked if a New York City jury, does not find him guilty. I will be absolutely shocked. Um, like you said, I think all of this right here, catching Cohen in a lie, and the hard cross that he got today from Trump's attorneys. I think that's just they're setting up for the appeal. Whenever that's gonna happen, because I personally, again, me being the doomsdayer, I think the fix is in, and I think that the jury is going to convict him because they know that those jury names they're going to be doxxed eventually, right? And they're probably going to be doxxed fairly quick. You're going to have some that are going to go out and jump in front of the camera first thing, for their 15 minutes of fame. But I think some of those other jurors are like, I may be doxxed, and I don't want to be living in New York City. I don't want to be the person that let Donald Trump off the hook. I don't want to be that person. So I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. We'll see.
I'll tell you who's not as sure as you are that he's going to jail is the Biden folks. And I say that because Biden coming out and doing this, which was not a bad move, coming out and like it's totally, it's a good move. It's the best move he could possibly make. Right. Answering the call for a debate, saying, yeah, I'll debate you anytime, anywhere, even though Trump called for it first. Oh, and I'm going to make the ground rules as well. And Trump, whatever. Trump said anytime, anywhere, any place, so the ground rules are the ground rules. If Trump really wants to debate him, he will. But I think that them doing this, I think they think they're behind. I think they think they're behind, and we're in trouble. And there may be some conspiracies, about why they're so early. The debates are in June, and is it September? Yeah. So June. That's a pretty quick debate, and yeah, it's just interesting. I think it's not necessarily a desperation move, but a move they had to make. And there'll be plenty of talk about how that debate's going to go. I love y'all's rules. I'm just really anxious to see how both of them do. If Trump is the Trump from the last debate in 2020. Especially the last one, he'll do fine. If he just sits there and lets him talk, don't interrupt him. Do not interrupt him. Let him talk. And with Joe not having a teleprompter, I think that they'll pump him up like they did for the State of the Union. Definitely, he'll show up looking a little bit like that. How long is that going to last? Probably about the same as it did in the State of the Union. Just giving initial takes on how it's going to go. I mean, it's way too early. I'm so excited about it. We got to figure out something special to do that night. But yeah, man, I think it's not desperation, but it's something they had to do. And it's just going to be so great to see him talk without a teleprompter for longer than 30 seconds. I mean, it could be disastrous. And Roger, I don't know if it was you that brought up the possible conspiracy theory of they're gonna use this to replace him. Is that you that said that?
I heard that they were going to try to replace him at the convention, but I mean that's just folks on X running their suck holes or whatever. And I think even Don Jr. or something said that. One, I'm curious if the debates even happen. But I like the only reason Biden agrees to this is because they think they're behind, and not only behind, they think they are significantly behind. Enough that, hey, they can't make up the distance without doing something like this, that you need to put the Don up in front of, 100 million Americans, to remind them why they were voting against him or whatever the case is. But I'm like you, man. I mean, the dude can't even read 30 seconds from a teleprompter. Now, this is genius on Trump, right? I mean, that's why you say anywhere, any place, anytime, whatever. It's like the dude can't read from a teleprompter for 30 seconds without jacking it up. And I tell you, I wasn't a big fan of CNN hosting it, and I think it's Jake Tapper and the one chick or whatever, I forget what her name is, that are to be hosting. I'm not a big fan of that, but it's like the only way he comes out of this thing, and I try not to set the bar too low, because I think one of you guys, maybe both of you, brought it up. If you set the bar so low, all Joe has to do is show up and he's won, right? And that's what's happened with his previous debates. But the only way he comes out of this, at net zero, if that's what he's going for, and anything positive, is if he is propped up by the anchors, i.e. given questions, which we can't say hasn't happened before. Remember Donna Brazile and Hillary Clinton? Or he's able to spew off things like his 9% inflation rate. And he's, which is blatantly wrong, right? It was 1.4% when he took office. It got up, he's saying that it was 9% when Trump left, but nobody's called him out on it. Nobody's called him out on it. A couple of the shows like Fox News has done it, and Neil Cavuto, God bless that dude today. He called out one of his admin folks. He's like 9%. He's like, it's wrong. And the guy's like, yeah, it's wrong. But if they don't hold his feet to the fire, I mean, that's what's going to allow him to come out with net zero, is being held up by the anchors.
So let's play act this real quick, Roger. Let's play act. Ready? So you're Donald Trump, and we're in a debate, and you're using this moment to call out what you just said. It's 9 point. It was 1.4 when you took office, right? So call me out. I'm Biden. So you're Trump. Don't use it. You can use a Trump voice if you want. I'm not going to do a Biden voice, but you call me Biden out for that.
That's wrong. That's a lie. I turned over one of the strongest economies in the history of mankind at 1.4% inflation.
You caused that 9%, Jack. That's what the comeback's going to be. He's going to deflect away from the fact that he, misspoke. He's going to be like, no, you caused that. It's the same thing that Obama did.
So this is where the moderator, right, should come in and be like, Hope, in fact, when Donald Trump left office, it was 1.4%. Okay, that was January. And then the month after, in February, it was like 1.7%. And then in March, it was over 2%, and it's been over 2%, which is the Fed Reserve target, ever since. Dude, you know how impressive that is? That's like Jimmy Carter stuff.
Yeah. The moderator won't do that. I don't think the moderators see that as their jobs, but I do want to talk about moderators for a second, Josh. I think who did they get? I can't even remember. Jake is not Jake Tapper.
And your boy Jake Tapper.
Jake Tapper, and what's her name?
And I forget the female.
Whatever. Forget her name. But they're dyed in the wool. Everybody knows they're going to vote Democrat. Okay. I know that Sean Hannity is going to vote Republican. Right? That's the level we're at here. They're clearly partisan. Okay. Are there there's one, and you're going to mention him, Josh, him or her. Are there moderators out there? It's like, I could get an honest shake from this person, or America could get an honest shake from this person. Because I'll be with Fox News moderators. I don't know. I don't even know who they'd vote for. I think half of them are selling their soul and saying stuff they don't really believe for that paycheck. So I don't know with Fox. It's like, I don't know if it's unless it's Sean Hannity or, those guys. But like Brett Baier, I don't know. Maybe he's truly a Democrat. Who knows? But are there any? There's one in particular, Josh. Like, is there anybody who's like a voice of reason? They're not partisan. You're not even sure who they're going to vote for. Is there anybody out there like that?
I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Well, there's Joe Rogan. I'm not talking about anybody in the news media, whatever, just personalities, whatever, who, are touching, Joe Rogan's media. I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, even Joe Rogan, you take a look at him in the last 12 months, dude, he's not voting for Biden. He's flat out not voting for Biden. Now,
that's true.
Do I think Joe Rogan would he go after each one equally and fairly? Yeah, I do. Right, but we know that he's not voting for Biden. I think and we've said it on here before. I think the best style presidential debate obviously is the Lincoln Douglas format, and you take both candidates, you put them in front of Joe Rogan for 3-4 hours. There's your debate, right? And then, hey, to the victor go the spoils.
And you'd only have to do that once. I think you'd only have to do that. I mean, I'd like to see it multiple times, right?
Yeah,
But the
for sure.
reality is, you do it once. You cover your 2 to 3 heaviest topics, like you said, 3 to 4 hours. Have your fact checkers there, and yeah, I mean, one, they'll never use like a Joe Rogan anyway because he will be so pointed. He would be the guy that's like, no, 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 no. It was 1.4%. That is a fact when you came in, right? He's going to be the guy who does that, which even the guys on Fox, I mean, like you said, most of them, we know how they're going to vote. And most of them, even when Donald Trump's on TV or any of the Trump family or whatever associates, they don't give a whole lot of pushback on some of that stuff. But, Joe Rogan would. And I think, a lot of it is, I hope the moderators at least, and this is the best you can hope for, because like you said, we know how Jake Tapper and the other guy or other chick's going to vote, but I hope they at least phrase the questions so that it's like a fact check question, like as opposed to, hey, what are you going to do with inflation over the next 4 years, since the last 4 years have been, yada, yada, yada. They need to actually come out and just be like, okay, according to the BLS or CPIU, it was 1.4% when you took over, and 2 months after you took over, it was 2%. You have to throw the questions out there that way, right? You have to throw the yes, dude. I tell you what, hey, Josh has got me all sidetracked now. This is insane. It's insane because MSM covers this stuff up, but the whole showering with the daughter thing, dude, like. Even Fox is not jumping on that grenade.
You've got to ask both of them that question.
Oh,
you got to ask them both, yes or no.
But back to the Biden thing, I hope the moderators kind of throw the facts out there first, and that way when he does exactly what you just said he's going to do, Luke, which is 100% spot on. It's like, okay, there's definitely a contrast there, and the people can see that either one, you're lying to me, or like you're just not with it upstairs. Like that doesn't bode well for him. If I throw that out there at that, with those facts, and you come back with, well, it was 9% and da 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 da. It's like, okay, the American people will see that. Like that does not do him any favors, I don't think. But of course, they won't do that. Luke or Josh, I don't know if you want to follow up on that. I was going to comment on the shower daughter thing, but I guess we can do that in a minute.
No, I wrote down a list of moderators here that I'd like to give them a chance, right? Of course, Josh already said Joe Rogan. How about this? Elon Musk. He hates everybody. Matt Taibbi, Glenn Greenwald, Barry Weiss, or Dave Chappelle. Can you imagine a Chappelle moderator?
I fully support Dave Chappelle. Right.
That would be awesome.
Hi, Dave Chappelle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I mean, it's how long is it going to be? How much time is it going to take for all the boomers to die off, right? And for us to come up, I think even us as salty Gen Xers are ready to see a new format. We've talked about this before numerous times on the podcast. But, definitely I don't see Gen Z or millennials getting into this how it is. As flat as Ron DeSantis's Twitter announcement fell, I still praise it because, well, you're ahead of the curve. Too bad it didn't work out for you like you thought, but this is where it needs to be going, and I'm glad to see it from Republicans. But I mean, when is it going to be realized that not necessarily Joe Rogan, but like PewDiePie or whatever, him moderating a debate on YouTube is where you're going to get the most eyeballs. You're going to appeal to. How long is that going to take? What are we, 20 years away from that? 10?
At least 10. We're not gonna get out of there until they announce Speaker of the House Matt Gaetz, or
AOC.
Yeah, Speaker of the House AOC, third in line to the presidency. We're not going to see do that, and then maybe you will at that point. Maybe you will see a Matt Taibbi moderating the presidential debate. But the way the debates are set up right now, the format, it just doesn't work. And again, we're broken record on this. Like, Mr. President, Mr. Former President, what would you do to solve world hunger? You have 30 seconds, go. You're like,
I'd
this
feed them
is
all.
silly.
That's what I'd do. I'd feed them all.
Would you dissolve the Fed? Why or why not? You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And it's silly
Massey
the way
put
it
up a
is.
bill today to get rid of the Federal Reserve. Did you see that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's great, but it's not going
Won't
to
go
pass the
anywhere.
Senate. Yeah, it's not going to
It
go
won't
anywhere.
pass
It's
the
not going to
House.
go anywhere. It's going to be dead the second it leaves his office. It's going to get in the hallway and it's going to like poof.
Ooh.
It's going to be dead.
What's more likely? Dissolving the Fed or totally overhauling Social Security? Which would happen first? Like, which could possibly happen first? I mean, I know they're both impossible, but it's like, what's more likely?
Overhauling Social Security.
That's going to
Overhauling
happen. I mean, I don't know what your definition of overhaul is, but Social Security ain't going
Completely
anywhere. There's too many
privatized.
people that are
How
on
about
that
that?
tip.
How about that?
No,
Privatized.
Oh, I'm with you, dude. I'm with you. Bush.
Well,
tried that,
I'm saying,
right?
so I would still say that flipping to privatized Social Security would happen before getting rid of the Fed. There's just
I
too
agree with
much
you.
power at stake with the Fed.
Yeah.
They're gonna start Boeing people, Boeing. I'm saying Boeing and I'm making it into a verb. They're going to start doing what Boeing did to their whistleblowers, but it'll be politicians, dude. It will be ugly if there is actually steam behind that.
Right.
Ugly.
The Fed ain't going anywhere. Well, I want to know. You brought up Boeing, and so two of two whistleblowers are now dead as Dillinger. In case folks weren't tracking that. I'm not a betting man, but the odds there just kind of seem kind of far out there. But I want to know where do you put your application in for Boeing Wetworks? Because I'm just kind of curious what that looks like.
Yeah, man. I mean, there was a movie with George Clooney, and I'm forgetting the name, where he's a lawyer for Big Chemical, right? And there's a part in that movie where the law firm's like, you know what? It's cheaper just to kill this person. We're willing to take on that risk because we're standing, whatever. So they, the way they portrayed these dudes killing this guy is how I imagine it happening. Like not even to Epstein, they basically just, came into his apartment, kind of rushed into, did this so fast. The whole scene was only like a minute and a half. They incapacitated him with, some chloroform or something, and held him down, and they injected him with something, the magic substance that's in movies, and they leave. They clean up everything and they leave. It's a really cool scene. I'll think of the movie in a second. But and then the guy, the camera stays on the guy as the door closes and locks behind him, and he starts having a heart attack, like and shaking, killed him, heart attack. And that's what the autopsy is going to show, and that law firm is going to pay to make sure the autopsy doesn't, go too deep, with a blood panel. But that it's like it's totally within the realm of reason that exists. Because you guys, I mean, we've all worked with some people. It's like, man, they can get in and out of a place really fast, especially if somebody's just not expecting it. It's like, I could see something like that happening. I mean, pay them enough money, you know. There's a lot of tier 1 guys that get out and don't do a book deal. They don't go to Hollywood to start advising. They don't, get that dream job at Google or whoever. They're just out there with a skill set that is very, very specific and very, very honed. So it's like, come on, man. If there are applications, Josh, I don't think you could put one in. They come and find you, But anybody who thinks, dude, it's Jeffrey Epstein and these 2 Boeing guys, come on. One of those guys was killed. That was not a coincidence. Even if one of them dying because they had a stunt, okay, I get it. Maybe. But both of them?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you get one. I will give you one, right? Maybe that dude was, was vaxxed up and, had his 18 boosters and, that was what got him. But both of them, I'm not giving you that. I'm not giving you both of them. And again, I try not to be a black helicopter guy, but these people are not helping. These people are not helping keep the black helicopter theories away from me. With Boeing, though, you don't need to kill them. Let the whistleblowers come out and talk about it. Because here's the thing. You knew there were problems and you didn't care anyway because for these large companies, it's easier for them just to pay the lawsuit. Just, hey, we're going to pay the lawsuit. We'll pay people out when, a plane, turns into a lawn dart, instead of recalling all this stuff. And Ford did it when you in their Pintos, because of where they placed the gas tank, the differentials, when they got rear-ended, differential bolts, stuff for penetrating the gas tank, turn them into, Chinese fireballs going down the road. And did Ford recall all those? No, because it was easier just to deal with whatever lawsuits came their way. They pay it out a little bit and they're good.
We've talked about the formula on this podcast, the formula from Fight Club. You know what it is X equals the number of possible incidents over a year. Y equals, the potential lawsuits we'll have to pay out. Z equals the cost of a recall. So they multiply X by Y. And if it's more than Z, they don't do a recall. Or if it's less than Z, they don't do a recall. So it's like, you're right, Josh. It's like, it doesn't make any sense because, well, unless the formula didn't add up, could be that. I don't know,
Well, the media doesn't help because, like, with the 2 Boeing employees, like, where's the media on that? Because we know they get their talking points, right? We've all seen the little snippets Fox does and CNN or whatever. Everybody comes up that, they show like 15 different news anchors and they're all echoing the same 4 words or whatever, or the same catchphrases, whatever the catchphrase of the day is. So we know they get their talking points, but like, where's the media with this stuff? And that goes back to what Josh is saying. It's like, hey man, they definitely aren't helping themselves, because I would think as an independent journalist or an investigative journalist, I'd be like, okay, are we really talking about a coincidence just with those 2 themselves? Are we really talking about a coincidence here? Let's dive into it a little bit more and figure out, maybe there is. I don't know, but it's just the fact that nobody's even talking about it. And it reminds me, because the other day, Antonio Brown, the football player, went crazy. Hillary Clinton followed him on X. So he reposted. He's like, by the way, everybody, I'm feeling just fine. I don't feel suicidal. I'm just putting it out there. And then like 30 minutes later, he blocked her. He's like, oh man, just in case, I can't do that. So, but yeah, it's, when you look at like the Epstein thing, I mean, that's a prime example. It's like, and maybe he did, right? I mean, because you get people that are like, it makes sense to me. I get it. You get folks that have that much power, that have had that much money. All of a sudden you're confined to a jail cell, this and that. I mean, it happens. People commit suicide, but a lot of this stuff is just very, very convenient. And there seems to be a lot of coincidences. I want to go back real quick to the whole showering with your daughter. So this is amazing to me because, like, with the Ashley Biden thing, so everybody knows Ashley Biden's diary was stolen. And in the diary, she had a very, very troubled childhood, from at least what she writes in her diary. And there are a lot of drugs, bad boyfriends, alcohol, and this and that. And, she's got some, pieces in there where she's like, showering with daddy. Was I molested? I think so. Things like that. Right. And kind of like Hunter's laptop, everybody's like, it's not real. It's not real. You can't prove it. Can't prove it's real. Can't prove it's not real, whatever. Well, the lady who, quote unquote, well, I guess you can say she did now, I think she's already been sentenced. The lady who stole the diary, I think her trial just finished like yesterday or whatever. And they invited Ashley Biden to be part of the sentencing hearing. And Ashley Biden basically wrote a letter saying that, yeah, the diary's mine. It's real. It's going to bring back too many painful events and memories, yada, yada, yada. So I'm not going to be present, but I hope you, sentence her to the full extent of the law, whatever. So she has just come out and corroborated that diary. And I guess, you could say inclusive of everything that's in there. Now, you could obviously go, event by event with other things. Hey, did this really happen? Da, da, da. But when you look at the time that this was written, and like I said, we have a copy of it. It's like, there's no reason to lie. Like when you have that personal lie, diary like that, like the whole point of like, there's no reason to lie. You have no expectation. And clearly she didn't have any expectation that this thing was going to make it out. But where's the media on this stuff? Like, Luke, even Fox News is not even touching this thing. I mean, that to me, man, is like, hey, maybe, there have always been rumors of Pedo Joe, and I forget what is his boy have in his phone as. I forget whatever his pen name is. I forget off the top of my head, but you've got a lot of rhetoric out there about, Pedo Joe. Then all of a sudden you've got this, but nobody's touching it. Are they scared that they just lose their respectability if they go down this road, or what's the deal?
Seems like it. what I'm kind of at a loss until you said lose their respectability. It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Because like you said, Ashley Biden was a troubled youth. It's like, with all this other stuff, drugs and everything, how are we? How reliable is this? Peter, Pedo Peter. Thanks, Josh. Oh, but yeah, I don't know how much they don't want to. I don't know. I go back to, man, what about ratings? But then there's credibility, and you're getting in the gutter there, and it's the president's kids. Even though Trump's kids weren't off limits, but president's kids for the most part have kind of been off limits. I don't know, man. That's a good question, Roger. I don't know why they're not jumping on it. That you remember all the rumors flying around about Trump and his daughter, right? That's why I said ask both of them. You remember all that? Just some gross stuff, a lot of gross memes on the social medias. But yeah, I don't know, Josh. I'll leave it to you, Josh, to pivot to the VP. But what are your thoughts on Roger's question? Like, why isn't everybody on this?
I don't think the media is on it because they've been told not to be on it, right? To include Fox News. Fox News is not a fan of Donald Trump. There might be some people on Fox News who are a fan of Donald Trump, but Fox News as a media outlet, by and large, is not a fan of him, right? And they have been told to stay away from the Ashley Biden diary, because if the Ashley Biden diary was not real, if everything in it was conjecture, it was Mel made up, it was the land of make believe. Well, why did the FBI prosecute the person who stole it? Who? Why is the FBI prosecuting somebody who steals a diary? It's a diary. It's a book. Like, how about if you go and steal a book from Barnes and Nobles? Are you prosecuted by the Federal Bureau of Investigation? Or are you prosecuted by the local police? Right?
What about a hacker who gets into your phone, who gets into somebody's phone and takes all their pictures and all their personal property? Does the FBI go after that?
Yeah, not necessarily. I mean, that is so when the FBI gets involved in things that are normally left to a local law enforcement, that tells me there's something more there, right? It's back when, what's her face, and they were investigating Hillary Clinton, after the meeting with Bill on the tarmac. It's like, is Secretary of State, Clinton under investigation? It's like, well, Loretta Lynch, like, well, we're looking into a matter, right? Oh, now we're the Federal Bureau of Matters. Why is the FBI prosecuting somebody who stole a diary? All right. As far as Joe Biden showering with his daughter, all you have to do is look at his interactions with kids for decades. Look at his interactions with kids for decades, and women in general. All right, always trying to cop a feel, always, really touchy feely, even after he's been told about it. He's been warned about it. He's been told about it. So it's like, it's not like, oh, well, nobody's ever brought it to my attention that I do that. I'll be more cognizant of my behavior. I won't do it. It's like, no, everybody talks about it, but yet he continues to do it because he continues to get away with it.
Dude. What do you think about this, Josh? So if he loses, he's not going to be venerated at all. He's the guy who lost. No, he's going to be the first one-term Democrat president since Jimmy Carter. So the media is going to savage him, I think.
Oh yeah.
Do you think it's going to come out where there's going to be like after the fact whistleblowers who come out that were staffers at the White House talking about he was touching them inappropriately? I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he loses. That stuff starts just coming out like nothing. Because you're right. What you said struck me. It's like he can't help himself. It's a real problem because he's been told about it.
Yeah. It's the same thing with an alcoholic, right? Who, he cannot help himself. As Luke holds up his pounder. But as far as Ashley Biden and did Joe Biden shower with her? Well, she just said everything in her diary is true. So therefore, Joe Biden showering with his daughter is true.
Did you see the Snopes fact check? Snopes. It wasn't about that specifically. It was like, is Ashley Biden's diary, is it really hers, or whatever? And Jack Posto and a couple of other guys jumped all over it because a couple years ago they put out untrue or unproven And a few days ago, after the letter came in from Ashley Biden, changed it to true. So now everybody's jumping back on it again.
Yeah, there you go. And so, when you mention that, we normally, presidents' children are normally hands off, right? Don't leave the kids alone. That's normally geared toward, hey man, their kids are teenagers, or they're going to get in trouble. They're going to get in a wreck. The Bush daughters are going to go out and go to the kegger, and get their first beers. And yeah, hey, leave those kids alone. Hey, this is a president showering with his daughter. All right, and some of the personalities, that's fair game. And some of the personalities on X, and the Krasenstein brothers, one of them even made the comment was like, "Well, I mean, it's normal for dads to shower with their daughters, up to a certain age." It was like, what? It's like I have three, never showered with them, so no, it's not normal, and it's not something that men should be doing with their daughters. But
That dude cannot get off the X, can he?
no, he cannot. He can absolutely not get off the X. So I think if Joe Biden loses, all right, which I don't think he's going to. But I think if he does, I think you will see some folks come out because they are going to savage him. But I don't think they're going to savage him the way he should be, because we are going to go back on another 4-year roller coaster, media with Donald Trump, because the media is going to be focused on him. They're not going to care about Joe Biden. Joe Biden will become a quick footnote. They're going to be, they're going to be focused on Trump. Everything's going to come back out. It's going to be, Russian interference, Russian collusion, the Russian interference drum. Give it about, I want to say, I'm going to call it July. Sometime in the month of July, there's going to be a story that comes out that it's going to be specific information that Russia is interfering in the campaign. All right, the campaign of Joe Biden. Russia's interfering. There's going to be, watch, they're going to start pounding the drum on that narrative starting in about July. And if Trump wins, that narrative is going to get louder. It's going to happen.
Oh, the Russians are going to interfere. All right. They're going to interfere by occupying Kharkiv by that time.
Dude, they're making some advances. You take a look at what they're doing now. Now they have that envelopment coming in from the north of Kharkiv. And I read one report today, talking to a couple of folks today about it. And Ukraine's almost out of reserves. And when I say reserves, I mean military age males. So I mean they can start with going and getting some of those military age males that are seen dancing in the nightclubs and stuff like that, and they
jamming out to Anthony Blinken's guitar.
Yeah, jamming out to Anthony Blinken's busted ass guitar. Who do you think he is up there? Bob Seger? That guy.
Oh, dude. Well, hey, it's happening. It's happening exactly how we said it would. With
the Russians didn't Putin just fire his defense minister, right?
Yeah, that was a big thing. I hope some things were updated on that.
Yeah, so he fired Shoigu, but he fired Shoigu last week or earlier this week. Yeah, well, this past weekend he fired Shoigu. Shoigu's deputy was arrested on corruption charges the week prior. They just arrested another high-ranking general on corruption charges. What's interesting is that these guys getting arrested on the corruption charges. Everybody knows Putin's corrupt. Is how he got started. When Boris Yeltsin brought him into the fold, one of Putin's first jobs was to manage the portfolio of the different, yachts and properties and dachas, that the government had, the party had. And so Putin was able to dole out those favors. So the deputy, Shoigu's deputy that they arrested, that guy was in the same position as Putin was, managing that portfolio, and they arrested him on corruption. And so it's probably he probably didn't grease the right skids. He probably didn't grease the right, palms to remain in that position, and so they were like, "Oh man, all right, well, you're getting the business now." So yeah,
So
it's
imagine
going to be interesting.
with Russia, a gold mine of a professorship, like at a university, is if you taught like Russian current affairs, right? Because you got to give one new lecture a week, and things change so fast there. You'd have new material every week. It would be a great course to teach. But that's about the only positive aspect of this changing so fast that I can think of.
So what
Yeah,
do you think the change is going to be in their tactics? Do you see something more aggressive and a stronger push throughout Ukraine into Kyiv, or
Well, what month is this? We're coming into the summer months, so they've got. Let's see, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4. They've got 4.5, 5 months before things start turning soggy and nasty, and then they freeze over. So, yeah, they may be making a push. I saw another report. It was like from the Guardian or something. The Guardian give numbers like Afghan sources give numbers. Oh, there's 100 guys. There's 100 fighters over here. It's 6. It's like that. So the Guardian said there are 500,000 troops, marshaling on the, on the north, to go into Kharkiv. I'm like 500,000. Yeah, I don't know about that. It's probably more like 100,000, if that. Right. So this push on Kharkiv, and everybody's sick of Ukraine. Everybody's getting sick of Israel. So this push on Kharkiv, I think could. I'm not going to say it's going to break the back, but it's just what we said at the very beginning. At the very beginning of this, all three of us agreed that this is going to be a slow slog, and Russia's ready for it. Putin's ready for it. But yeah, I think it is going to pick up. There's no choice; it has to pick up.
well, Russia has the reserves,
Yes.
right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a war of attrition, and Putin is able to not only manufacture tanks, artillery pieces, and stuff. Not at a very fast rate, but he's able to manufacture them. But at the end of the day, he has more military age males that he can put into the meat grinder than Ukraine does, and it's going to be a matter of numbers.
So you
at a certain
said
point, and Russia's going to win.
Ukraine's out of reserves, right? Do you know the Ukrainian draft rules right now, like the conscription rules?
I have no idea.
Okay, so the conscription rules, the conscription rules is people who are getting conscripted at the very beginning were over the age of 25. So like that's where it started, conscription. We're used to 18, right? That's ideal. Nope. They wanted to do it a different way. They wanted to, preserve their young men. I guess that's the philosophy. It's wholly European, by the way. But yeah, it's 25. They moved it down to 23. And when they move it to 18, there's going to be a lot of Ukrainians out there, a lot of babushkas saying, you know what, maybe we should just give Russia what they want. So yeah, they are going to have to move their draft age. They'll probably move it to 21 next, and then they'll drop to 18. They're hurting, man. They're hurting.
so they've already moved it once from 25 to 23?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's just a bad sign. You know what? You go 18 at once, get the force en masse, and you mount a defense, and that's the best thing you can hope for. Going back to I'm with Josh for the whole Russian collusion thing, or the election interference. My thing is that when you look at like Russia and China, like I want Joe Biden to win. If you're Russia and China, you want Joe Biden to win. Like, yeah, they may interfere, and they're going to interfere and like, hey, we need Joe to win because he really ain't doing jack around here. Right?
Man, they're being practical. I don't know. If they're being practical, I could see some voices within the government who have, within the CCP in China and maybe in Russia. It's like, you know what, with China, it's going to be, there's some money to be made here because Trump, will search for a deal that's mutually beneficial. He will do that. And if you're Russia, it's like, we were intimidated by this guy, but we could work with. I don't know, man. I don't know what Russia would think about that. I think Russia. I don't know.
Well, I think going back to the deal, I think Trump comes in. He said from the beginning, I'd have this thing done in 24, 48 hours. And so there would be this compromise or stalemate or whatever versus, Russia being able to continue the offensive that they want to go on. And hey, you know what? You reelect Biden, you've got 4 more years. Yeah, I've actually got that on my notes. That's what I was talking about with like China. So remember, it was xenophobic, right? When Donald Trump, imposed tariffs on Chinese goods. It was xenophobic. You're anti-Asian. It's Asian Pacific Heritage Month. You can't do it this month, this type of thing or whatever. And he campaigned on it. And again, like everything else that this president has done. So now he comes out the other day, puts tariffs on $18 billion in Chinese imports, steel, aluminum, legacy semiconductors, electric vehicles, battery components, critical minerals, solar cells, cranes, and medical products. So again, you know what? This sounds just like the border. So remember that he came in day one and it was like 101 executive orders, basically rescinding everything that Trump had done. And like gradually you just have to put them back in place. It's like, dude, if you just left this stuff alone, yeah, same thing as insulin. It was $35 under Trump anyway. You let it expire and then you had to do it again. So it's like basically everything that you said that you came in, that you campaigned against because it was all bad, because Orange Man was doing it, you got rid of it all. And then over the course of the next 3 to 4 years, like, yeah, man, we might actually have to bring that back a little bit. And so, now I haven't seen the ramifications of all of it. I mean, 18 billion doesn't seem very big to me. And when you look at, I haven't looked at the steel, so Chinese steel sucks, right? So anybody out there buying, and I know this firsthand, if you're going to buy some stainless steel pots and pans, you want European or North American steel, right? Nobody wants Chinese steel. But with like the electric vehicles, it's like they only export, I think it's like 3%, 2% of their electric vehicles to, I matter of fact, I can't even name a Chinese electric vehicle that we import. So I don't know how effective the 18 billion is, but
I think it could be more effective in a different way than a lot of people are thinking about right now. And that's why I think that this administration is filled with idiots. I'm all for tariffs. That's how we used to fund the federal government, was with tariffs. So it's like, I'm all for it, right? But is this the best time to be imposing tariffs on all of these items when inflation is as bad as it is? You're going to end up, once these tariffs take effect, and it'll take about a year, it'll probably hit under Trump if he gets elected, but you're going to be hit with another hidden inflation. That's basically a tax. So Roger's talking about Chinese steel. It sucks, right? But at the same time, if Chinese steel is, what is it, tariffed at like 30% or something like that? I don't know. But there's a particular type of knife, and of course, tonight's the night I can't remember the names. I have these knives. There's 3 levels of the knives. There's the ones that the steel, I almost did the flip off. There's the ones that with the steel made in China. There's one with the steel made in Spain, and the last one, everything, it's the knife is made in Germany, but it's with high quality U.S. steel. Okay, the German one's the most expensive. The Spanish one is like, that's the one Luke can semi afford. It's still good. And then you got the Chinese one. The difference in price is, for the same knife, the German one is $150, let's say. The Spanish one is $75. The Chinese one is $10. So if that is tariff, if that's a tariff, and you're somebody who buys their knives at Target, and you're like, I want this nice knife, but it's that Chinese steel that's just garbage, right? The knife gets dull, you can't sharpen it, so on and so forth. But that same person in Target who picks up that knife, well, this is one that'll probably work for me. They're going to be paying $13.99 instead of $10, right? So they're not even looking at the Spanish knife. So that's a hidden tax, and that's a very specific thing. But man, Chinese steel isn't everything. Chinese aluminum isn't everything because it's cheaper, because it's lower quality. But now it's going to cost more. It's like right now is not the best time for this, because it's additional hidden inflation. It's a tax. I had to rant about that. I'm sorry. And it's like, was this really the best time to do it? So maybe you're right, Roger. Maybe it won't have any impact at all. And they're like, this is minor. We're taking a stand against China.
Well, no, because they're just going to change the numbers. They're going to change it. So I did not know this. I had to actually do a little bit of a deep dive on it last couple of days. So I think we posted something. I think Josh posted something a couple of days from the C3 account, and it was coffee being replaced on the inflation index, right? Because Coffee since like November had gone up like what, 78%. I don't know the exact number, but it was something crazy, right? It was like 78% or whatever. So of course, the Fed's just like, you know what? It's gone up. So we just kind of removed that out of there. So it got me looking like, okay, who determines this? What makes it onto the CPIU index? What's not counted? How has it changed or whatever? So what I can tell, it looks like there were two major changes. There was a standard in the 1980s, then it changed in the 90s, and then now it's changing more often. So in the 80s, basically with inflation, everything was counted. Okay, housing, rent, energy, food, whatever. And basically what they did was, okay, Josh is going to go to the grocery store and he's going to go buy eggs, meat, milk, cheese, and whatever. And it costs him $100. And if he goes back next year and he buys the same items and it's 105, guess what? You've had 5% year over year inflation. Okay. Pretty easy, right? Well, somewhere around the Clinton years, and the Bush years as well, they decided, well, you know what? That inflation number is pretty high. Because you got to remember, we were coming off the tail end of the Carter years, right? So you come off the Carter years, you get into the Reagan years, and now it's like, hey, we can't have this 10, 12, 14, 16% inflation anymore. So they removed the housing market from it. And then in the 90s, and even now, they don't count the goods. So those items that Josh bought that he goes back next year, they don't count the same goods. Now what they count are substitutes. This is mind-boggling to me. Okay, this is what pisses me off, and this is what pisses me off about X. And maybe this is where the trolls get under my skin because they're all smoking crack. One, there's a difference between inflation and inflation rate. Inflation is not going down. Okay, that's a news flash for everybody that's on X. Inflation is not going down. Goods are not getting cheaper. Goods continue to get more expensive. They are continuing to get more expensive. The rate of the increase has come down from the 8, 9, 10% or whatever. But what they do now with inflation, they strip out food because it's volatile. They strip out energy because it's volatile. They strip out housing because they did that back in the 80s. So basically anything that you need, they're going to take out, right? But they also factor in substitutes. So as an example, Josh goes and this year he buys a dozen cookies, okay? And they cost $1. Comes back next year, those same dozen cookies cost $1.10. Josh says, well, I'm not going to pay $1.10 because I can get a dozen muffins and I can get those for $1.05. They count that $1.05 as the inflation, not the $1.10. It's not even item for item anymore. Not even item for item. They allow substitutions, and the way the government does it is they say, well, we're accounting for quality. We're accounting for quality of goods because maybe Josh says, hey, you know what? I'm making better money this year. So I'm not doing the $1.10 cookies. I'm going to do the $1.25 ho-hos. Okay. Well, they want to account for qualities because those ho-hos taste better than those cookies. Those ho-hos weigh more than the cookies, but you're not getting an accurate comparison year over year inflation. So when you look at, and I think I had it on one of my saved websites here, there's a place called Shadow Government Statistics. And what they do is they show the current inflation rate with how we calculate it. They had the 1980 standard, and then they have the 1990 standard when it was changed. Dude, when you look at inflation right now with current, like the official standard, you're looking at just under 4%. It's over 8. It's over 8 when you look at the way we used to calculate in the 80s. And when you throw in energy and everything else with it, you're probably at double digits. And that's why when people come out and they're like, well, wage growth and this and that and whatever, it's not keeping up with inflation. And the reason, and the administration doesn't get it, because no matter, you can sit here and throw numbers out all you want. They even had Mark Cuban out there, right? One of the top 10 richest dudes in the world or whatever. Oh, it's not that bad. And I'm like, no, people are buying milk, eggs, and cheese. They know it's that bad. And you can sit here and tell people at 3.4%, this and that, whatever. Again, it's rate. Okay, year over year. And we talked about this before. We've talked about this for 2 years. That's how the administration plays this, because when you look at total inflation from the time that Biden took office to now, you're at about 18% at least. Actually, I think it's probably about 20 some odd right now. That's just CPIU. Okay, we're not even talking about housing, energy, food. You're probably well into the 25, 30%. And I don't know about you guys, but I know most salaries have not gone up 25 or 30% over the last 3 years. And that's why you have this disjointed, the Biden admin and KJP, and her dumbass up there. Well, we're just not selling it to the people hard enough. We're not marketing it to the people hard enough. No, because they know that a year ago I paid $1.80, or 3 years ago. I used to talk about this when I moved out here to Queen Creek. It's like, man, I'm getting a gallon of milk for $1.88. I was like, I kind of dig it. Paying $4.29 now. Hey, you can put whatever number you want to on there. You can adjust that CPIU however you want to. I know what I paid 3 years ago, and I know what I'm paying now. So I know I'm on my little rant because the inflation thing really, really pissed me off on X. So I'll throw it over to Josh.
Well, I mean, it was smart on their part to take food and energy out of the inflation, the
Sure.
inflation rate, how they count it, because that's two things people buy every day, right? And people feel that every day when they go to the grocery store to get their $4 plus gallon of milk, and when they stop to fill up their vehicle with fuel. But at the end of the day, well, I can tell you, I can tell you, my salary sure hadn't gone up any. Maybe I'll talk to my boss about that. We'll see. So on the inflation piece, the people that should care don't care, because they're going to listen. They're going to look at what the government puts out, and they're going to take those numbers as the gospel. They're not going to go do that deep dive that you just did. And the people that need to listen to C3 don't listen to C3. And so they're not going to understand that they're being bamboozled. They're being run amok, led astray, So we'll, I don't know, man. We'll see. But you're right. Prices on stuff are not going down. So I went into the grocery store. Anybody watching our YouTube, you can see, behind me. I'm sitting in a hotel room, and I went to the grocery store to have some food to keep in the room, because I'm trying to eat cheap while I'm traveling now. And I bought a bag of 10 hard-boiled peeled eggs, right? So I can. That's my.
You didn't boil your own eggs, man?
No, dude, that's top, man. I buy the bag.
He can't get the shells underneath his nails. I get it.
No, I just whatever. I'm busy. All right, I'm working. I'm busy. So a 10 hard-boiled eggs cost $9.99.
Wow.
10 hard-boiled eggs, right? And that's a Food Line. This ain't a Wegmans, right? This is a Food Line. Like, this is the Dollar General of grocery stores. This ain't.
I didn't know, like, the little Venezuelan. They have like little Venezuelan kids that peel that stuff, or what?
They probably do. That's probably why it's probably why it costs so much, is it's imported from Peru or something.
I'll look on the bag, because I had 5 today. So
yeah, look on the bag. I bet that's
I'll
coming
look on the bag
from not the U.S.
Probably. Probably gonna wind up with like dysentery or something. But yeah, it's brutal out there, and I don't know how some people are making it. I really don't, and I feel bad for them because it's expensive.
Yeah. Well, the official inflation number that y'all are talking about, the one that's released, I personally don't believe that's for the person who has to buy milk every couple days and put just enough gas in their car. They're not. I'll risk to say they're not watching the news. They're watching whatever sitcoms on, and they're working. Two mom and a dad and a couple little kids are probably both working full-time jobs and just barely making it by, and wondering what they're going to do with their kid when it needs daycare or whatever. I think that people want to point to the Dow hit over 40,000 a day. So look how great the economy is, Jack. But dude, this inflation is a president killer. This is an incumbent killer. And if it were anybody but Trump, well, let me back up. the people, like to y'all's point, the people who aren't paying attention, don't listen to C3, don't watch the news, nothing, don't listen to any talk shows. They're feeling this. They know something's different, and they know it's happened recently. So it's like those people, if they do vote, I mean, I don't know. We're heading toward a landslide of like Reagan-esque proportions if it was anyone else but Trump. That's why I'm starting to, like, unless something changes, I'm starting to go over into Rogers' camp of, I think Trump's got this, man. I know, Josh. I know I know your view on that, Josh. I know the hijinks, we'll call them. The hijinks are gonna make it, but I don't know if they can pull enough hijinks to stop this wave. We'll see. I may change my tune on that, but I want to like gently segue into vice presidents. Okay, let's talk about the situation Biden's in first. Is that he cannot get rid of this literal ball and chain that's dragging into the bottom of the ocean, Kamala Harris, because he thinks that he's going to lose the black vote somehow if he does that and brings in the golden boy, Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom will do him a lot of good. It would do him a lot of good. But we all know that Kamala's probably going to be the vice president, even if they move somebody else in. Won't that be hilarious if they move somebody else in like Gavin Newsom and she's still the vice president, bro? But the real question is Trump, right? And I haven't given it a lot of thought, Roger. Josh, you brought it up. So we should talk about that. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Doug Burgum, I don't know what that does for him other than, a lot of money. Doug Burgum makes a lot of sense. We all three said that. I think policy-wise, he's spot on in almost every category. But Doug Burgum, what does he do? Vivek, the dog killer. I don't know, Josh. You said we should talk about it. So the dog killer, she's done, dude. I'm with Josh. I mean, time is not going to heal this wound, bro.
Dude, like I said, you can shower with your daughter and become president. She'll be fine.
But
give her 6 months.
Kill a dog. You can't kill a dog. Just ask John Wick. So yeah, Josh, what you said, let's talk VPs. What do you got?
Well, I was thinking we were going to segue into VPs after we got done talking about the president. Not after we segued off of that and then talked about inflation for a while. Now we'll double back to VPs.
We talked about Ukraine too.
Yeah, we talked about Ukraine. Now we're back to VPs. Apologize, listeners. We didn't take our collective Adderall this evening before we started recording. So let's talk Kamala. So the Democrats have a Kamala problem. She has some of the lowest ratings for any VP ever. And when you go back and think about some of the VPs that we had, come on, really? Like, you have a lower VP rating than Dan Quayle? How is that even possible? That guy was abysmal. Al Gore. Like, I mean, could you he did invent the internet, so we got to give him that. But go take a look at the VPs. But you're right, he can't dump Kamala for anybody because the Democrats are struggling, or people say they're struggling. I don't know that they are. With the black vote, because I am a firm believer that it doesn't matter. It does not matter what Democrat is in office. The black community is going to go to the polls and they are going to vote Democrat. They are going to vote Democrat. LBJ was Nostradamus on that, that proclamation he made, and he has been right, since then. And Walter Mondale, of all people, so who was the vice president for Jimmy Carter, absolutely visible. So, but Kamala, she came out and stated here, what was it, end of February, beginning of March, she said, "I am fit to serve, and I am serving." So Kamala, from what she's saying anyway, who knows what the truth is, she's not stepping down. She's not going to willingly step down. And I think if they tried to remove Kamala, I think she would. I think she would fight it. She would fight them because she's got nowhere else to go from VP. Anything else is a demotion. You know what I'm saying? She can go run for governor, state, more likely California, but you've been vice president. You don't want to be governor. When you're sitting in that vice president chair. If you still have political aspirations, the next logical step is, maybe I'm going to the Oval. We're gonna move from the Naval Observatory, into the big house. So, but man, she is she is not popular at all, and God, she is. You can't get her in front of a microphone. She's terrible on the microphone. So I've had to Roger see what he had to say about Kamala, and I'm sure we'll go, for a couple rounds because I got some other thoughts on some potential VP picks for yours and Roger's boy, DJT.
I just actually realized something, guys, and I know I'm a little bit older than you guys, so y'all aren't in the same boat as me. But I always knew this, but I just looked it up again. I was looking at the presidents and stuff and the vice presidents. Y'all know who was president when I was born? Richard Nixon. Yes. What the hell? Dude, I'm old. And Gerald Ford. And by the time I even knew what a president was, it was Jimmy Carter. Gerald Ford. I lived through Gerald Ford, people. Y'all can shut up, millennials. Y'all can shut up, millennials, and you shut up, Gen Z, because I lived through Gerald Ford. We all three lived through Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter.
Fortunately, we were so young that didn't have that. I didn't know that I was drinking like imitation milk at that age. Or
hey, don't sell yourself short, man. Don't sell yourself short. You made it.
Whatever. If I'm the GOP and if I'm Donald Trump, I am pimping Kamala Harris, because I tell you what they haven't done yet. Because here's the deal. Okay, let's say Joe wins. Just when you look at the last 4 years, dude, the cognitive decline, it is exponential every year, right? When you look from 4 years ago, and it's actually unreal because when you look at his time as vice president, even his time as vice president, right? Something fairly recent, he was there. He had it upstairs. He was always the angry, pedo or whatever, but he was upstairs. What I've watched over these last 2, 3 years, 4 years, his brain is oatmeal. And I don't think what the American people have really put together yet, outside of us and our listeners, is like, hey, the odds. I don't know. Maybe we need to do like an over under. Like, what are the odds that Biden, if he gets elected again, that he actually makes it to 4 years? And like Josh says, Kamala is not stepping down. Okay. The Democrats have a Kamala problem. And if I am the GOP, one of my strategies is to pimp Kamala Harris. Hey, are you ready for this lady here to be your next president? Right? Because they hate her. She's atrocious. And the problem with her is she's at that age now. It's like Josh was saying, her next step should be the White House. She was overheard talking to friends the other day saying that if they lose, she's going to go run for governor of California. Because I think at her age and with her reputation, she realizes that, hey, you're never going to be electable on a national scale. So then that brings me to something else. There is a large part of me that says that the Democrat base, like Democrat leaders, they want to lose. Or put it this way, they don't care if they win. Because, there's something that to be said. And again, this is just from what we read and what we hear or whatever, but they don't just have a Kamala problem. They have a Joe problem. They have a KJP problem. There were a lot of talks that, hey, we don't want Joe Biden to run, right? We want Gavin Newsom. We want the guy out from Maryland, a handful of other folks. And from everything I've read in the rumor mill, and, it is what it is, but Joe's like, hey, I'm not going anywhere. I'm the president. What are you going to do? And at some point you're like, hey, dude, what are you going to do? Right? Can't kick the dude out. Kamala, again, she's not going anywhere. And then you can take the first Black, Asian, Hispanic, sub-Indian continent, whatever she is this month lady, and say, hey, you're no longer going to be the VP for the next run. Well, that ain't going to happen. KJP, The Democrats tried to run her out last October. Remember, we talked about that with Kirby when they brought him in. We're like, oh, here we go. You bring in the white dude to kick out the lesbian black chick. And you know what? We called it. That's what they were doing. They were hoping like, hey, it's a good time for you to step down now, right? That's why they ran Jen Psaki out. She was a bumbling idiot too. Except you just replaced her with somebody worse. I mean, at least Jen Psaki was a little bit angry. So she kind of threw out, she's a little angry. She threw out a little bit of that spite there or whatever. It made her seem smarter than what she was. But you replace her with KJP, and KJP, friends and family are telling her, hey, look, the administration wants you to, well, I shouldn't say the administration, the Democrat leadership wants you to move on. And she's like, I'm not going anywhere. So you have three folks there, and we know KJP will move on after the election anyway, just because of timing and everything. But you have three folks that are essentially running the Democrat Party. They're like, hey, man, I'm not going nowhere. So I truly believe there are a lot of folks, and this is, Josh is spot on with the black vote. Where I do disagree is, I don't think Trump gets 20% of the black vote. What I do think happens is a lot of people stay home. And I think that's what they're counting on. And I think with Democrats, when you look at the Democrat leadership, the Democrat base, they're like, hey, you know what? If we do lose, we do lose. Because here's the other thing too. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, man. Yeah. And that's what, Josh is saying, that's the best case scenario for the GOP. The other thing that I like with the GOP, and I kind of go real quick into what I think for Trump, I do like his 50 state policy. The GOP has been arguing it for years. We've even talked about it where it's like, hey, man, you need to get out there at all 50 states, put the pressure on. And I think you can put the pressure on him because normally you can't do that just because of time, money, and resources. But Biden is very, very weak. And if you take some of these states that lean blue and you put them as toss-ups, it's a lot of pressure. And now there's talks that the Biden administration, remember 2 months ago, they were touting how much money he has. Dude, they're saying he's almost broke. Like he's got money problems now. It's like 2 months ago, you guys were bragging that he's got 20, I shouldn't say broke, but they were saying, you were talking about 25 million in a night and this, and then they're like, he's actually having campaign finance problems, which may stem from Hunter Biden and his legal troubles we can talk about later, because Hunter Biden's getting ready to go to court over gun and tax charges in June. And oh, by the way, they can use campaign finance money to pay for that stuff, pay for the attorneys for that. But I think they have a major problem and they aren't afraid to lose. As far as, and I don't know why this name came to my head, but, we talked a little bit about several of them. I mean, to me, the no-brainer is Ron DeSantis. That's a no-brainer. That is a win. That is the second best scenario to Ron being the, Republican candidate. I think you set him up for his 8-year run. You could almost take, we talked about Trump's 4 years. It's really not going to be 4 years, right? His last year is going to be lame duck. He'll have control maybe of both houses of Congress for 2 years. So at best, you're looking at 2 years. You bring on an RDS who's going to be your 2028 running guy. You're looking at a 12-year stint now. I mean, you play your cards right. And that to me would be ideal. That ain't going to happen. I think Ron's got too much pride. And I do think Ron's got some principles that he stands on. That's like, no, I'm going to run on my own 2028. I think people will see that he is the best candidate that we'll have. I mean, who knows who pops up between now and then, but dude, Doug Burgum, man, billionaire, the North Dakota governor, he brings plenty of money. He brings plenty of connectivity. He's also seen as a very stabilizing force. Like this guy is not the most energetic dude up there, right? He doesn't have the most charisma. And I think a lot of people may look at him and say, okay, you're not going to necessarily, level Donald Trump out. But he is so opposite that's like, hey, maybe that just kind of brings us to the middle. And I think a lot of people will see that. Plus, I think if you're a Doug Burgum and you have hopes to run for president, like seriously run, not what he did before, but like actually like, hey, I want to be, throw my name in the hat and actually have a shot at winning this thing. Hey man, a good 4-year run as the VP and you have a good economy and you become that household name, you could be seen as a very stable force that goes on beyond the next 4 years. Because I can tell you this, regardless who wins between Biden and Trump, the next 4 years are going to be chaotic, right? And I think you bring in, I think that's perfect. It's a perfect fit for Ron DeSantis, who we've said before, does great in town halls. He's not the guy that's going to get out there and throw the confetti and fire people up, but he's got sound policies. right? And he makes sense. And I think Doug Burgum is very similar to that. And I think the country might be ready for that in 4 years, maybe. So I don't know, Josh. Who do you think? Who would you say is your leading candidate? I think, like Luke said last week, I think Vivek is just too young. I think Vivek's a cabinet member, but I think he's 10 years out, right? But I don't, at least in my own mind, I don't see. I mean, we've talked about the Tim Scotts. Is there somebody else that you say brings more to Trump and maybe does more to his electability?
I don't know. I completely agree with Luke. Vivek is too young. He's not going to pick. He's not going to pick Vivek as a running mate. He is a cabinet member, possibly. Maybe like transportation or something like that. He can take over for Mayor Pete.
Dude, I'm not sitting in that seat. Sorry, ain't gonna happen. You got to get new furniture in there.
Well, yeah. Burgum, we talked about Burgum during during the primary debates. Burgum was the only one up there who gave answers, that were congruent with the Constitution. He was the only one up there that answered the issue on abortion correctly by stating that, hey, the Supreme Court said this now belongs to the states because the federal government has no oversight in it, and we should probably just leave that alone and let the states figure it out for themselves. He was the only one, but yeah, he is not, and he is not exciting. To when he talks and stuff. But again, neither was milk toast Mike Pence either. I don't know. Maybe Doug Burgum, has dinner with other women.
But
or,
they saw
like
Pence. They saw Pence as being GOP, right? He's old school
Yeah.
Republican. Yeah.
Yeah, Pence is an old school establishment Republican. And that's like that. Doug Burgum. It's all going to come down to does the GOP like Doug Burgum? And
And all
I don't
signs
know.
point to no.
Yeah, Doug, because I don't think that Doug Burgum. I would have to go back and look and see, what some of his history is, especially his prior stances, as far as the GOP talking points and stuff goes. But I don't think he's. I don't think he's definitely not a Washington insider. And at the end of the day, this isn't about, Donald Trump, good for the GOP, because Donald Trump is bad for the GOP. Because the GOP, if the GOP got their candidate, it would be Nikki Haley, right? Because that's who the GOP wants. That's who the establishment wants, because she is a good establishment GOP, body. As far as who he picks for VP, I don't know. I don't think Ron DeSantis would say yes, because Ron DeSantis still has political aspirations, and I don't think he wants to attach his cart to the Trump horse just yet. Um, because if he goes and campaigns and Donald Trump loses, then when he runs for president in 4 years, I think that hurts more than it helps. You go back and you look at historical candidates who were the VP ticket, were the VP nominee, and didn't win.
Walter Mondale.
I don't think it helps him. Well, Walter Mondale, Al Gore. I don't think he does. I don't think he goes with Trump. I don't think it'll be Nikki Haley either. I think Trump has to get GOP donors. All right, he's got to pick an establishment body to do that. So I think it may be a Tim Scott. It may be, the Virginia governor. It's got to be an establishment Republican, because he has to get those GOP donors in there. And I don't see GOP donors getting excited about Doug Burgum. I don't see GOP donors, getting excited about, some non-establishment guy. I think it's going to be Glenn Youngkin. I think it's going to be, a Tim Scott type, because, he needs the money.
Yeah, it's difficult, right? I'm with Roger on this. I think the best possible is DeSantis. Me personally, that's what I think. I can't think of anybody better. I'll part with Josh. Not part with you, but just throw this out there. It's like, yeah, if DeSantis, because that's my first thought, and I was just so glad you covered it. It's like, okay, so DeSantis runs as VP. What's the worst case scenario? If you're his committee or whatever, worst case scenario is you lose. Okay, but in this case, I don't know if it's much different, but maybe everyone would think, boy, it should have been Ron DeSantis. I don't know. But it's like, here's the I don't know, man. I'm just throwing that out there. And maybe DeSantis wouldn't lose that much because it's like, I don't know. It's I just throwing that out there. It's not that I think that. It's just like, but yeah, I don't know. What are we talking about? Oh, vice presidents. That's right. It's not going to be Haley. I think there's too much bad blood there unless there's some
Her
kind of
name
curveball.
keeps coming up, dude. Her name
Sure.
comes up. Like I hear it once a day with the pundits. Nikki Haley.
Has she talked any crap on him lately?
Nope. And even Trump's come out. Trump came out on Truth Social, I think, a couple days ago and said, "Hey, she's not my VP pick." But then he was like, "Hey, I wish her and her family, the best wishes." And I mean, it was like, whoa, that ain't like an FU slam the door. That door is maybe like Josh is saying. You look at the base, bringing folks home. You need those voters. I mean, is he leaving that door cracked?
Maybe. Yeah, the money aspect, the money's with Nikki, like Josh said. Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I don't want to say because I just don't know. I think the Trump campaign can't get cocky though. They can't get cocky at this point and be like, it doesn't matter who we pick, because whereas the Joe Biden campaign is it's like they're a little worried. The Trump campaign can't get cocky. Yeah, so I don't know. It'll be very interesting. I hope it's DeSantis, but the odds are long on that. So let's talk about another American hero real quick. Y'all familiar with Harrison Butker, the place kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yes.
So this dude, I'm sure most of the listeners that know about Harrison Butker, what's happening right now to him in the media is he is Catholic. He's a devout Catholic, place kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs. Guy has a Super Bowl ring.
I think he's a Latin Catholic, like a Latin.
Yeah,
Catholic.
he's like old school. Dude's be speaking Latin and doing exorcisms and stuff. But yeah, so he went he was the keynote speaker at a private Catholic school, somewhat strict Catholic school. They make him go to mass and all that stuff. And he gave a speech. I don't know if you guys have read it. I don't have it in front of me, but he was talking about like traditional family values. And I think what really got him in trouble was he was talking about the 7 deadly sins. He said, pride is a big one, which we're about to celebrate for a whole month. I think that's kind of pushed it over the edge on getting him in trouble. But he was talking about like traditional things. And one of the biggest things he said that caused so much controversy along with the pride thing was the most fulfillment a woman will get in her life is to be a mother and a wife. He said that the fulfillment is just off the charts. Now, what the media is trying, and he was saying it in, in relation with a career, right? It's like, you may go far in a career and all that stuff, and you may have your eyes set on titles and all these things, but the greatest fulfillment you're going to get out of your life, he's like, you can go get those things, but the greatest fulfillment out of your life is being a wife and a mother. And that just set everyone off, and people are calling for his head. They want the Kansas City Chiefs to kick him off the team. It's just getting brutal. And I mean, Josh just put a 3-word X or tweet out there today. It's like something like, because he's a good man, or we need more men like him. And that thing just blew up with people liking it. And I don't know. So, okay, go to Josh first, because I can tell Roger's looking up the actual speech. But Josh, so Harrison Butker, I didn't know his name until 2 days ago, or it's just now I know him.
I was today years old when I learned that the place kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs was some dude named Harrison Butker. right? And I saw it, I saw it on X, and I just responded to it. I was like, well, we need more men like him. And I didn't even read the content of his speech, but I saw the NFL statement where the NFL came out, and condemned his speech. And was like, he does not speak for the National Football League, in his abhorrent anti-homosexual, content. So, but what was interesting, well, one of the things that was interesting, when was the last time you guys saw the NFL come out and, condemn domestic violence?
Dude, they got issues going on right now. I think even on the Kansas City
Yeah.
Chiefs, they got a guy involved like in a
Yes.
DUI hit and run. They're like,
Yes.
we've got our thumb on the pulse.
Yeah. No statement on that. No statement. Hey, we condemn, drinking and driving. Hey, we condemn, beating up your girlfriend. We condemn beating up your wife. We condemn you murdering people. Like none of that stuff. But this dude makes a speech at a private school, right? Where, that's congruent with his religion. And now people, they want to take him to the guillotine. So it is the tolerance of the left. It's never been about tolerance. It's compliance. That's what they want. They want compliance. They want you to comply. And if you do not comply, you will be destroyed. That's it. That's all they want.
That was awesome, man. I've never heard it put like that. I'm like, dude, I got to call you out, man. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to write that down. It's not about tolerance. It's about compliance. I've never heard anybody put it that way, because I love that, man. That was really good.
Thanks. It's the nicest thing Luke's ever said to me, by the way, y'all. But no,
it's all about, like, I've always framed it with tolerance and acceptance, right? There's a difference. I'll tolerate something, but that doesn't mean I have to accept it, that it's right, and that's why I'm calling it out. It's like a light came out of my head. It's like, because they're not about that. It ain't about acceptance. It's about compliance. They want to go beyond acceptance. So acceptance is the first step toward compliance. When you tolerate it, then you'll accept it, and now you're going to comply. You're going to actually do it. I love it. Thank you.
You will bend the knee, or you will be destroyed. That's it. So you know what? Hey, kudos to him. We need more men like him, as I said, and just to drive it home to the intolerant left. His jersey sales are now in the top 3 as of today of online NFL jerseys being sold. So,
which is bullshit, by the way. Stop buying his effing jersey. You know why? Because he gets the money. I hate the NFL. I'm buying his jersey. Like,
no.
But it's not about him getting the money. This is what I think. People are going out and buying the jersey not because I'm going to support him. They're going out and buying the jerseys because I support what he said. It's like I disagree. It's like, no, send them a message. But maybe it's the wrong message, because maybe we start persecuting all our guys and like getting them canceled and all this stuff so we can sell a bunch of jerseys. I mean, I wouldn't put it back past the NFL.
Dude, I mean, I want to what Luke said or Josh said. Like, remember the video of Ray Rice knocking his girlfriend or fiance out?
Dude, that was
in
a
the elevator?
Clean punch too, man.
Bro, I mean, we've watched like Tyson fights that weren't that bad. I'm like, man, he knocked the hell out of her, right? NFL, man, I mean, they came out a couple of days later, and we got to watch the video. And I don't want to be too long and boring here with it, but I've got the 2 paragraphs. This is what everybody's fired up about. And here's what pisses me off, because it's like everything else. All of these pundits and all of these trolls and this and that on X and social media and folks that are on TV, they clearly did not listen to his speech, right? They took a snippet that they heard. Well, actually, they didn't even take the snippet that they heard. They took the snippet that somebody else said was all bad and this should offend you. And that's what they got pissed off about. So he gives us this, speech or whatever. And again, I'll try not to belabor the point, but For the ladies present today, congratulations on an amazing accomplishment. You should be proud of all that you've achieved to this point in your young lives. I want to speak directly to you briefly because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now about to cross the stage and are thinking about promotions and titles you're going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you were bringing to this world. I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, will be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother. I'm on the stage today and able to be the man I am because I have a wife who leans into her vocation. I am beyond blessed with the many talents God has given me, but it cannot be overstated that all of my success is made possible because a girl I met in band class back in middle school would convert to the faith, become my wife, and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker. That last line is what all of the pundits, it's what all the trolls, it's what all the bots are jumping on. And there's more to it. He doesn't say that's the end all be all. You know,
No, he
the
said it
bottom line,
up front.
yeah. You know,
He
hey,
didn't say there's
people
anything
will go
wrong with
on.
it.
People go on and do other things and they'll do great things. And then he goes on and talks about the men. And he talks about the men coming home, you know, not necessarily being a homemaker. But what's interesting is you really dive into his choice of words. It's like, hey, he uses vocation. You know, there's an understanding there that you use homemaker and vocation. Like, hey, it's not only your maternal, duties, but it is also a job, right? It is a full-time job to be a parent, husband or wife. It's a full-time job. And he talks about the man going out, you know, earning a living, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, coming home, right? You need to be the patriarch of that family. You need to be the man who raises your kids. Yeah. And it's the whole nuclear family thing. I mean, it's, that's it, right? You move religion, you move God, you remove morality, you break apart the nuclear family. That is because we all talked about like the antithesis to like communism, Marxist ideology, right? That's it. That's the kryptonite, religion, and the nuclear family. Because now, when you have religion, you're a Christian, you believe in God, you have a family. What becomes a priority? It ain't the government, right? It becomes that. It becomes your religion. It becomes your family, and that does not. It is not very congruent with communism or a Marxist lifestyle. But you know, it's like these folks that come on here, like somebody needs to those folks that are, you know, I'm appalled and this and that. Okay, so do me a favor, listen to the whole speech, read it. So what part of this whole thing collectively like offends you? None of it should. But it goes back to what Josh said. It's all about compliance. It's not because I'm not even a Catholic, dude. I'm Southern Baptist. Like he's going to hell in my eyes anyway. But you know, as a Southern Baptist, it's like, hey, you know what, dude? You do you, man. You do you. And I agree with, you know, I say that jokingly. I agree with a lot of what he said, but it's like, hey, if you're not interfering or impacting my life and my livelihood, you're not camping out in my yard. I don't really care. Go do you. You want to be gay? You want to be straight? I don't even care if you have two wives, man. I really don't care, or two husbands, as long as it doesn't impact me. The minute it impacts me or the minute it impacts my freedoms, now I have a problem. But like Josh said, it's not about tolerance. Okay. It's about compliance, because those who preach tolerance are usually the most intolerant. And it's not the fact that I don't agree with what you're doing. It's no, I'm going to tell you how you need to be doing what you're doing. I'm going to tell you how to live. And if you don't do it this way, you need to be in jail. We need to take your kids away from you. Dude, it's criminal.
There's one thing I'm not going to necessarily take issue. I just like to discuss one thing that you, or a concept you put forth. You know, for an anthropologist trying to study the closest form of early man and, you know, interactions with institutions, those institutions being family, tribe, ethnicity, religion, the anthropologists need really to go no further than Afghanistan, as you guys know. And we discussed this on the show before, but I'd like to cover it again. You know, a lot of folks, you remember the Crusader guys back in the global war on terror who, you know, they're all about, you know, putting pig blood on bullets and stuff. And they thought, especially early on in Afghanistan, we're going to war with Islam. You know, that's what this is. The problem is Islam, you know, in Afghanistan. And what we learned, actually talking to the people and being actually out in the culture, as rich as Afghanistan's is, because you can call off Afghanistan a lot of things, but what you can't call it is poor on culture. That is a rich culture there, like it or hate it. So we discussed this. It's like, after talking to the people, it's like, this isn't about Islam, not here. All the problems that happen in Afghanistan, it's not about Islam. What's the majority of the problem? It's like, well, ethnicity is more of a problem here than religion is, because both the Northern Alliance and the Pashtuns, the Taliban, were both Muslim. It's like, well, it's not about Islam. So then we got into, well, why are there like 5 different factions of the Northern Alliance? Well, because the next most important thing is tribe, and those factions would go to war with each other. So each of the factions were a certain tribe, and they were always watching out, what's the other one doing? So tribe was more important than ethnicity, and it was more important than religion. Okay. But the most important thing for Afghans is their family and their extended family, because that's part of the tribe. So although religion is important, and I think that's the first step in a Marxist quote unquote revolution, is you tear down religion, because that's what binds people as a nation. Like in the case of Afghanistan, the very last thing they have to fall back on is Islam. We got all these problems, but at least we're all Muslim. So you tear down religion first, because then you can't have a huge mass of people coming together under a common cause, right? It's Marxist 101. Next, you get rid of ethnicity, or you put the ethnicities against each other until it just doesn't become a thing. I think we're on that path. Tribe, I would call neighborhood, right? Your neighborhood, your people who are in your inner circle, interconnected world. A tribe is a little bit complicated, but your tribe, the people who are around you, like I would call you guys my tribe, even though we're geographically separated. But beyond that is family. So family is the most important thing. You dissolve that. And that's why the Marxists are so comfortable to what Roger was saying, is they're comfortable not to go after religion. They're kind of going after ethnicity and tribe, LGBTQ and, the George Floyd riots and the so-called Proud Boys, or whatever that Patriot Front is that is made up of feds. They're trying to go after that, but going after the family is a bold move. And I think they're making a lot of positive steps toward that. I don't know. I just want to kind of go off on that and bring it back to Afghanistan and, what's truly important, what ties people together in a close-knit group, which is very powerful, to a community, which should be the most powerful. It's how our system is set up to, we are all one people, not necessarily an ethnicity, but a culture. And then the religion that binds us all together. It's all coming down. And if you want to say, well, the Marxists aren't doing it, Luke, that's just all conspiracy theory. Well, it's happening. It is happening. So I went off on a Roger soapbox there. We started talking about Harrison Buckner. Now we're talking about Marxists and tearing down institutions and all these things. Josh is right. It's like a lot of dyed-in-the-wool Democrats, not dyed-in-the-wool, a lot of new Democrats are Marxists. And I would go so far as like, if you got your coal miner or whoever is still in Michigan is, an auto worker and still, voting Democrat, I'd say they got a bit of communist in them, which
more than a bit
is, or what? More
than a bit.
Yeah. So I went off on my soapbox, guys. I kind of went off the deep end there. So kick it back.
Well, no, because it's about power and it's about control. And that's the thing when you dovetail off what you're saying with the family and being most important in your tribe, it's about control. Okay. They want to stay in power. And so when you talk about communism, Marxism, this and that, well, dude, it's not like this big free for all, summer of love. And, we all just go out there and we have complete like anarchy and we just do what we want or whatever. That's not how it is. It's those people that are in control that want to stay in control. And they are going to do the best they can at removing whatever is in the way of them having complete control over your lives. I mean, we've talked about this during the COVID years. and it keeps getting legislated in. I mean, think about this. They told you what you could wear. They told you when you could leave. They told you when you had to be back. They told you who you could see. They told you how long you could stay there. Right?
They told you
Now
what you could and couldn't buy.
What you couldn't buy. Do you remember
my
when we
own
were
daughter,
like washing grocery bags off because we couldn't bring them in the house?
My own daughter said to me the other day when I was telling her, we were walking through Central Park, New York. And we were talking about COVID. The Central Park was packed. My own daughter, who lived through COVID, right? She did not realize. I was telling her about how Home Depot wasn't selling seeds.
Yeah.
And there was all this random shit you couldn't buy. And she's like, that happened? I was like, yes, it happened. It happened like in your adult life. And she's like, I had no idea that happened. I'm like, dude.
The entire
I think,
state of Michigan. That's what Governor Whitmer did. She banned selling it because she didn't want people to congregate in areas. Right? So we're gonna prevent you from going outside to go. It is the stupidest things, but it didn't stop there. It continues because it's no different. And this is why, when you get into like the EU and why you had Brexit and this and that, because you've got people that are in power that are going to tell you, hey man, can't use gas stoves. Right? Can't use natural gas. We don't want you to use propane. Oh, by the way, we can't put gas in your car anymore. That's why we talked about a couple episodes like New York City. You can't store more than 2.5 gallons of gasoline if you live in New York City, or they call it hoarding. I mean, they're getting to the point where they try to control every aspect of your lives, and when you get to, I mean, we've obviously got the history of communism and Marxism or whatever. It's not even that. It's those folks that are in control that want to tell you what to do. Compliance, whatever it takes. And you know what? It's not just Democrats. I mean, they're the worst of it. I think, that the Republicans do a good job of eroding our rights, as it is. Maybe they just erode them a little bit slower than the Democrats do. Democrats at least just punch you in the face and do it all at once. Whereas the GOP just does it over a course of 10 years or 15 years or whatever. But it's all politicians, man. It's all the same. And I think that's one of the things when you talk about Roe versus Wade, and I know we're going way off the handle here, but that was the whole point of all that stuff is like, man, we celebrated that. Not only do you have an abortion ruling there, but it's also like, hey, it's consistent with the 10th Amendment of the Constitution to kick it back to the states to where you have some control over the rules and regulations that we decide that we're going to live by. But I think, Josh, a lot of people forget that. And I think a lot of people are just happy to be told what to do. That's what it seems like anyway.
No, a lot of people are absolutely happy to be told exactly what to do. I don't know if I told that story on here, but so I was getting on a flight, and this has been a while back, and so flying the Greyhound of the sky, good old Southwest, and Southwest open seating, you get to choose your own adventure when you get on as far as your seating goes, and this lady got on, and she did not appear to have been a Southwest frequent flyer, because she asked one of the flight attendants, well, where do I sit? And they're like, oh, it's open seating here at Southwest, you pick your own, blah blah blah. And this lady basically like vapor locked because she would left to her own devices. It was like, no, you get to pick. And she couldn't do it. She couldn't make a decision. And finally, the flight attendant was like, she was holding up she was holding people up from, being able to board the aircraft. And so finally, the flight attendant was like, well, how about this seat right here? Does this work for you? Here, I help you. Yeah, she was super, flight attendant was super nice about it. A lot more than I would have been. But it was like, hey, here's a decision you can make for yourself, and the lady just couldn't do it. And we saw it. We saw it during COVID. The majority of Americans did exactly what they were told. They wore their masks like they were told. They stayed home when they were told. They didn't go out when they were told. They didn't go to places they were told they couldn't go to. They wore what they were told. And a lot of them did so willingly, and even some were more than happy to call the hotline and say, well, my neighbor Luke is not following the rules, and I want you as a law enforcement to know that he's a rebel rouser, And so, yeah, the majority of people want to be told what to do, and the majority of people, I won't say the majority, and then another subsection of those people are more than happy to throw you under the bus when you do not comply, as we are seeing now, with poor Harrison, and them trying to cancel him after he attacked their sacred cows. No,
So, speaking of compliance, and we always, the three of us, Josh and Roger more than me lately, but we travel quite a bit. We're on airplanes. We always, complain to each other about everything. I think I have the worst, though. A 28-hour delay. Come on, man. But anyway, we always talk, oh, there's a lot of masks on this flight or whatever. And that's one that always, hey, I'm flying here. There's a ton of masks. What the hell? And sometimes it's a surprise. It's like I wouldn't expect, people flying from wherever to Phoenix to have a lot of masks on or whatever. It's kind of fun to talk about. But this past weekend, I flew to New York City to see my daughter get promoted. It's important to her that I was there, but let's be honest. I told her this. We joked about it. Let's be honest. Getting promoted to captain means you didn't kill anyone. So congratulations for not killing anyone. But that doesn't make it not a milestone, right? And so she did her little promotion ceremony at West Point. It was a very small thing. There's only about 6 of us there. West Point is truly beautiful. If anyone's ever been there, I would recommend it. It's beautiful. It's like U.S. Military Academy. Okay, I get it. It's like I can see why they put it here way back when they established it, 200 and something years ago. But anyway, yeah, so saw her get promoted, and we're like, well, we're not staying out in upstate New York. This place is the boondocks, man, and I'm from Texas. That's saying a lot. So we went into the city, and I was not looking forward to it because it's like New York City. I've been there a couple times, didn't blow my skirt up, whatever. But we planned out the trip, and we spent about 2 days, 2 nights in New York. We had it all planned out. Went and saw a hilarious play. Went to some nice restaurants. Walked around, went to the 9/11 memorial. And I just really had a great time. And I was surprised in New York, because when I'm getting back to the mask, I was surprised because I was expecting it to be far dirtier than it was. It wasn't. I was expecting the subways to just be crazy. They weren't. It's a lot like the metro. I wasn't assaulted by homeless people. In fact, I didn't see very many. Granted, we were in Manhattan, but we walked up and down the little island of Manhattan. I was impressed. And I feel the same way about Hawaii. I went to Hawaii recently. I was like, Hawaii's never blown my skirt up, but I'm okay, I'll go. And then I got there and I was like, man, this is great. I'm so glad I came here. So I felt the same way about New York, but I did not see a lot of masks. Not a lot of masks. Not a lot of COVID protocol nonsense going on. And you can tell a local in New York City from a tourist, it's the easiest thing in the world to spot. And I'm talking about the locals. There were more tourists on with masks than locals. So I thought that was interesting. A lot of the restaurants still had up the COVID protocols, but then there was like a little magnet over that said not observing currently. Yingling flight. Yeah. So anyway, I was surprised. I had a good time in New York, man. We planned it out. I thought it was a great trip, and I was not expecting that. I was like, this is going to be miserable. I'm going to hate it. But it was like literally made memories there I'll never forget. And 9/11 Memorial, Roger, you've been there. Here was my take, real quick take, because I know we don't have much time. It was powerful for me. And as we walked down there, it was an hour and a half walk. I didn't talk much because that's like a pilgrimage for me. It's like I take this very seriously. I want to talk about things. I want to hear you laughing about what you saw. Like, it was a pilgrimage. When I got there, the line to get in was so long, I didn't even want to go in. So I sat there and I observed. I looked at the pools where the towers once stood. I looked at the new, World Trade Center 1 right there and saw it's not that much higher than the other ones. And what really struck me is like, man, that's not as big as I thought it was. You see it on the TV and it's like epic, the plane hitting the tower. But if you were there and you saw that happening, it would be very close to you. It would be loud. You would hear it. You would feel from that high. You would even feel the heat plume come down. That really hit me hard. The museum itself, I think it's pretty well curated. The parts that hit me the hardest were the big wall with the Virgil quote with people who had painted what color they thought the sky was that day. Unbelievable. And initially walking in, like when you initially walk in and they have all those monoliths, and it's like I'm tearing up talking about it, like the monoliths, you know, with the sound of what people were saying that day, what they thought. I'm like, every one of these thoughts is what I thought, you know. So I thought that was really good. I thought the wall was really good. In honesty, I think they spent too much time focusing just on NYPD and NYFD, but yeah, it was awesome, man. I know we're gonna close out with this, but I'm not closing out. I'm gonna kick it to Roger.
Whatever, dude. Whatever. No, it's been a while since I've been there, and I think when you look at something like that, it's an event that changed the lives of a lot of folks. And I look at us three. One, and not obviously not happy that it happened, but those events are what brought us together at the unit that we retired out of, or left out of. We wouldn't be doing this podcast if it wasn't for that. But the other thing is, and I think this is why it's so deep, at least for me, is like that had direct impact on my family. The upbringing of my kids and my relationship with my wife, and then my professional circle, my personal circle. And when that happened, I'd been in the Army 7 years, 6.5 years. So the majority of my career was defined by that event. Right. And things that would come after that. And, we've talked about it a little bit before, and I think, Luke and Josh probably get a little bit more fired up about it than I do. It's, with the failed withdrawal in Afghanistan, it's like, well, hey, what was all that for? And so at the end of the day, you can only make the best of what we did, what we have. But it truly is, for us, when we look at, I can never compare what we did to the folks that stormed the beaches at Normandy and those type of things. But that is what defined our lives, right? A large portion of our lives. So I hope to make it back up there, here the next couple of years or whatever, because I think a lot of times those, it takes events like that, it takes memorials like that, just to give you a little bit of perspective, kind of bring you back a little bit. And, again, I think for a lot of our listeners, that have been in the area that were impacted by that as well, those are lifetime events, life-changing events. And it's the reason that we're at, where we're at. So, one good thing, if you can say a good thing came from it, is it brought forth the C3 podcast. Cause I think I'm pretty, well, a lot of listeners are like, well, shit, man, that's a bad thing. Right. But, had that not happened, we wouldn't have come together eventually, many, many, many years down the road. And it's kind of funny when you look back, and I know we all look back at our spouses and kids, they're just, this obviously wasn't a little thing, but there were just a lot of, events, man, that if they don't come together the way they come together or happen the way they happen, we're not where we're at. So anyway, just want to say thanks to everybody out there listening. The last thing I've got before we close out, I'm assuming that we might even have a verdict by next week with the Trump thing. The way it sounds like they're going, it looks like they're going to have one more day of Cohen's testimony, which, like we talked about a little bit earlier, looks like he was caught lying on the stand. So that is not a good thing. But there's, I think the defense may do one more thing. They may do one more, or bring one more witness to sit there and depose, or have testify, and then they may just throw it to the jury from that. So with that, thanks for listening. Keep your canteen cups tightly secured and full of some good booze, or some Yingling Flight or Michelob Ultra, or whatever you got out there. Peace.